A lot of beach here, and there's a lot to cover and a lot to do. We're in the process of working with all our partners, the Board of County Commissioners, their code enforcement, TDC, South Walton Fire District, our own fire rescue personnel, to start an educational campaign to let people know what's going on. That's first and foremost. Keep in mind, this is a customer service oriented business. We have to let people know that there has been a change. I will tell you, immediately we've noticed voluntary compliance across the board. We were down at our local parks and we're able to see people, listen, they're not pleased, but they understand and they're complying, and that's what we want. We are looking for voluntary compliance. I want to be clear, we are not dragging people off the beach in handcuffs. As I said, we're not jackbooted thugs. We're in the business of public safety and of customer service. We're going to carry out this order with a common sense expectation. Now, we understand, or we ask you to understand, this is a very trying time. It's an unprecedented time for both Walton County and for the nation. We understand that our small businesses, that this is our lifeblood. This is where our community supports itself. We're very cognizant of that, and we appreciate so much our small business and our residents being willing to work with this on them. I got to tell you, I've been super pleased with the number of businesses that have spoken to both myself and Chief Crawford, and said, listen, Sheriff, we're going to voluntarily comply. In fact, I talked to one of the biggest beach vendors a little while ago, La Dolce Vita, said, hey, listen, we're going to help him pull back. I was talking to a local seafood market. Sheriff, we're taking these steps to help the community. So most of our neighbors are working really, really hard to try and help us comply in it and understand that this is a difficult time. I ask you to consider, this is not a one-day event. This is not a blizzard. It's a winter. It's a long term. We've got to get through this, and we will only get through this working as good neighbors and with cooperation. Your sheriff's office, your South Walton Fire District, your BCC personnel, they're going to be professional and they are going to provide you with customer service. You may not agree with the action the Board of County Commissioners taken, but understand the spirit in which they took that action, and that is in the best interest of this community. So with that, I would open it up to questions either from Chief Crawford or myself. Chief, anything particular you want to address?
No, Sheriff, I think you covered it. I think, I guess what I would want to convey is we're resource partners. We work well with the Sheriff's Office, Walton County Fire Rescue, our local healthcare providers, our Board of County Commissioners, and specifically we're a service provider with the TDC. We do operate the Beach Safety and Education Program, which is our lifeguard service. We're going to work very diligently and collaboratively with the Sheriff's Office and with the TDC to communicate this public education message, the importance of reducing that footprint and complying with this ordinance. Really for everybody's public health. So we're asking everybody to comply and make our jobs a little bit easier with pushing that mission out.
Amen.
So what's going to happen with your lifeguards and other employees who work on the beach with their clothes?
So the question is, what's going to happen with our lifeguards that are operating on the beach? That's a great question. Our plan is that those lifeguards will be instrumental and intricate in helping enforce this, restriction to the beach and that the beaches are closed. That public education piece is critical to what we do day in and day out anyway, whether it be surf conditions, we're going to be out there and educating people and explaining to them the importance of why it's important that we support this ordinance and keep them off the beach.
And I know you guys were talking about signage that's going to be going up. When is that happening and where are they going to do that?
So it is en route now. I mean, starting at 5 o'clock in the morning, we'll have a combined probably 40 to 60 people working, both the TDC staff and additional help from South Walton Fire District and BCC staff, putting up signs at public beach exits or access points. We're out there now. We've got deputies on the beach. We're out walking around talking to people, letting them know. There's got to be a reasonable level of expectation of us to get this thing done in a timely manner. I think I said earlier, we had people calling within 30 minutes and go, hey, there's still people on the beach. You're not doing your job. Slow down. Common sense. We're going to do this as quickly as we can, but with as much balance and nuance as we can as well.
And maybe what's a message to the ones that you told them you got to get off this beach and they're like, we just don't want to. Like, what's the next steps after that?
My daughters want Christmas to come twice a year, but that's not happening either. At the end of the day, we're going to do everything we can to educate you and help you get in compliance. But if your end all be all is that you're just not going to do it, then you're forcing our hand. Yeah, absolutely. Could that end up in someone's arrest? It could. But let's be pragmatic. We're trying to keep people out of jail for the COVID thing. So what we do is ask you to use a little common sense in this regard. You know, but are there going to be people like that? There are for sure.
Sheriff, how will closing the beach affect crime throughout the county? Will this impact private beaches? How does this impact privately owned beaches?
So I want to be clear, and what I'm fixing to offer to you is not an opinion. The question was, how does this action affect private beaches? How does this affect crime across the county? There's two separate questions. I'll deal with the first. Obviously, this is going to be a drain on resources. There's no other way to put it. You can't put 40 and 50 people to work on one specific task without some ramifications. But we will continue to do our job. We will continue to handle the calls in the rest of the county. We will do what needs to be done in a thoughtful and professional manner. And again, thankful for our partners in all of this. The question about private property. So the way the Board of County Commissioners ordinance was written was that the beaches, all 26 miles, are closed to the general public. The reality of it is that Walton County is in a unique position where there are a significant amount of the beaches are owned by private entities. The board has come to the opinion that they are not able to, under the Fourth Amendment, to ask people to get off the beach on private property at this point. Now, let me be pragmatic. Some of you people will say to you, well, we've done this in the past. You know, you do it during hurricanes. What's the difference? The difference is the amount of time involved in this. Typically for a hurricane, a national disaster, a hazmat spill, that's 48, 72 hours. So can they do it? Yeah, they ultimately can. I think what they're hoping for is voluntary compliance among the private property owners. The difference is we will not allow the general public to customarily traverse private property during this time. That's probably the most important point about that. I feel like, and I'm optimistic, that most of our private beach owners will voluntarily comply and will stop renting to people and not have 20 and 30 people out there. If they don't, the board may very well revisit that. I mean, I can't tell you they won't. They made a conscious decision where they're at, but at this point, we're asking for voluntary compliance.
So, Sheriff, are you saying that if someone is on their way to a public beach or whatever, and they're traversing private beaches, that you guys will?
Well, they won't be on their way to public beaches right now. So the public cannot be on the beach at this point. So if it was a private beach owner, the way the ordinance is written, and they lived on the beachfront and they walked down, no, I don't have any enforcement authority at current.
Sheriff, maybe just talk about, this virus is already scary enough in the sense
Right.
of making sure people comply with what the governor said and also local officials. Talk about how much more difficult it's been considering it is spring break and there are a lot of people that aren't from here that are here right now.
Yeah, I think if you heard Director Holt of the Health Department earlier this morning at our board meeting, and I'll restate the question, was the difficulty involved in combating a virus, which is not in our traditional realm of service, with spring break. Listen, the reality of it's been incredibly difficult. Thousands and thousands of people are still coming here. Everywhere else, people were sheltering in place and starting to make some decisions. However, everybody loaded up in their Suburban and said, let's go to Walton County. And so, we literally had thousands of kids at Seaside the other day, in really direct disregard for the safety of themselves and for others. So yes, it's an issue. Here's the problem that I've struggled with, and quite frankly, I think if I didn't tell you, I would be lying by omission, so I'm just going to be very frank about this. When we say there's only one positive COVID case at this point, I think is where we're at. The reality is we have a lot of residences or patients under investigation, which is, pretty telling when we're a county with only about 80,000 people. And as of this morning, we had more patients under investigation in this county than you had in Escambia, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, and Bay combined. Now that may change tomorrow, but it's incumbent upon us to take some kind of action.
Can you explain what you mean by people being under investigation?
Yeah, that's a term. The question was, can I explain what I meant by patients being under investigation? It's a term from the Department of Health for addresses or patients where there is a suspected belief that they are potentially positive for COVID, and they're awaiting confirmation testing. Doesn't mean they're all going to be positive, but I think the significant number is pretty telling for a county this size.
Do you know what that number is?
It's about 26 as of right about now. Now that's subject to change. It could have changed an hour ago.
So what are people going to see whenever they try and go to the beach? Are there going to be officers at all the
access points or gates?
Yeah, I think a combination of a lot of different folks. They're going to see at the public beach accesses, they're going to see signs that say beach closed, blocked access there. They're going to see either maybe a South Walton Fire District lifeguard, a TDC code enforcement officer, a beach ambassador, or a deputy sheriff, really a combination of all the above. All partners, this is all hands on deck trying to deal with it. And you know, again, we're going to approach it with a customer service and education standpoint. We're going to be as nice as people will let us be to them.
Are there currently any officers or any squad cars that would be or are being used right now to kind of block people from coming into those parking lots or access to?
We're not blocking parking lots. We are starting to appear at the accesses. We're actually down on the beach right now. We're talking to people. You know, again, how you feel about this is largely how you feel about the Board of County Commissioners' action. Unfortunately, really boils down to political ideology for a lot of folks. That's not my business. I'm not into that. What I do is carry out the will of the people in a reasonable, professional manner with due regard to the safety of the citizen. That's it. That's all we do. And so we don't get into anything that doesn't, what the reasoning behind it, quite frankly, I don't care. What I am going to do is we're going to be professional and, again, and courteous. Any other questions?
Yeah, have you heard from the state in terms of whether they're going to allow you guys to sort of be the enforcement arm of the state park beaches?
So we have not heard about that specifically. I know the Board of County Commissioners was reaching out to Topsail State Park. I will tell you I had an opportunity to speak with Governor DeSantis yesterday on a conference call. I did pose that question about Topsail State Park. If the board took this action, it was the governor's direction that, you know, every local entity, every park inside of a local entity would very much attempt to comply with what the local governing body was doing. So I took away from that they would take steps to try and close Topsail as well.
Sure. And how many miles of beach does that take?
Topsail's about 3 miles, I think.
3 miles?
Chief Crawford, could you talk about your staff is supposed to keep people safe while they're on the beach, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do, but now they're keeping people off the beach in general. Just talk about the conversation you have to have with your staff and how they need to approach this new role, kind of.
Okay, so the question was, what instructions are we going to provide to our staff, our lifeguards that are operating on the beach to keep folks safe when they're traditionally used to, rescuing people and so forth, and now the message is a little different. So what I would tell you is, believe it or not, we have some experience in this between double red flag conditions, hurricanes, tropical events where we enact through emergency measures to close the beach for the public safety. And our men and women are always involved and engaged with educating the public. You know, the lifeguard in the sense of it's not just sitting in a lifeguard tower. It's really engaging the public from an education standpoint. We're engaged in missing persons on the beach, medical emergencies, those sort of things. So, the message is going to be very similar to what the sheriff said. I think it's going to be, why the measures are in place, explaining, that these are not ordinary times that we're dealing with. I mean, I think we can all look around and see there's some extraordinary measures being taken. And it's really in an effort for public safety and for the general public health. And so that message is going to be that we can't have them out there right now. I think we're all hopeful that this will be a short period of time and won't be extended, but for now, that's kind of the message of what we're going to be conveying.
Sure, can you clarify, so if spring breakers are down here from Tennessee, Atlanta, and they're renting a home that has private beach ownership, they are allowed to be on the beach if they don't own that home?
If it was my druthers, if I had the legal authority to stop them, I would stop them. We are asking homeowners private property owners to comply with that. Is it possible that a homeowner may choose to try and circumvent that? It's possible, and we're going to deal with that as we move forward. But from a purely legal standpoint, it's a private property matter at this point. But I will tell you, there are an extended emergency powers that should they choose to continue to take that route, if they do not police themselves, there is another step to this. So we're hopeful that cooler heads prevail in dealing with this. These are, as Chief said, it's extraordinary times. Extraordinary measures are being taken here. And I think it's just socially in this community, if you're doing everything you need to do, you're limiting yourself and your business is taking a hit. If you're, if you're Shrimpers Fish Market and you're complying and you're doing all these extra things to help, if you're La Dolce Vita and you're doing these things to help, if you're Shunk Gully, who've reached out to us and said, we're going to do this to help. We're self-policing, we're following these mandates. But by the way, business X, I'm not doing anything. I think there should be some pressure and some consequences for those folks. There's a big difference between what you can do and what you should do.
So, obviously, I mean, the county and with the state parks, you guys have specific and unquestioned control of 6
Correct.
miles of 26 miles of
Correct.
beach. What are you going to do, or what message do you have to folks, those private beach holders, landholders, that don't necessarily have to comply?
Yeah. I mean, there's still, the governor's under order under 252, which is the emergency powers, the emergency order they passed. I'm of the opinion that should they not self-police, there is another statute, 30.291, which deals with the sheriff's ability to close and shut down anything deemed to be of a public risk. We try and stay away from that because that's typically a very short-term thing, but this is unprecedented times. It's unprecedented times. We want voluntary compliance. We want you to do the right thing. I think I said earlier to someone that I've spoken to probably 7 or 8 attorneys this morning, either threatening suits or telling us why we're doing this wrong or how we should do it. That just comes with the business where I'm at as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to ask you to play ball. We're going to work with you. But if you're not going to do the right thing, we're going to try and make you famous. We want people to know that you're not doing your part to help this county while trying to make money when everybody else is suffering. I think the public has a right to know that.
So is that public risk statute, is that something that you can act on unilaterally, or would that
I can.
require some board?
I can. Yes, I can act unilaterally if it comes down to that. I've refrained from that because I believe that statute is specifically designed for, an imminent threat. I think because the Board of County Commissioners has met, they've made a decision. I'm honoring their decision. I think they made what is an intelligent, thoughtful decision. They are expecting compliance across the board. They're expecting these people to comply. If they don't, there's really a couple of options. One, the board may elect to go back. The board may elect to go back and say, you know what, we're going to make a decision that all of this, we think that we can win this in court, because I assure you they're going to be sued. That's just a fact of life in today's world. I don't know that I would want to sit in a jury in Walton County and explain why everybody else was complying and doing the right thing, and you decided to sell us out. So, I guess they can take that chance if they want to.
So have you considered any sort of benchmarks or trigger points that might prompt you to take that?
Yeah, so from my standpoint, that it needs to be an extraordinary thing. What is an extraordinary thing? You decide you're going to have an open house party. You decide you're going to have a beach a wedding in the middle of this. You decide you are going to flagrantly and with disregard put other people at risk. Yeah, I think that would qualify in my opinion. Again, hope it doesn't come to that. Hope it doesn't come to that.
Sheriff, talk a little bit about how this impacts small businesses. You were talking earlier, small
Sure.
businesses are no less important than the large ones.
Absolutely. And that's an important point. The question was, how does this affect small businesses as opposed to large businesses? Here are these small businesses that are holding on, fighting tooth and nail, trying to make their house payment, trying to support their children, that are complying, that are doing the right thing, and yet we have some large businesses that apparently think maybe they're too important to comply. And that is incredibly frustrating to me as a sheriff. It's frustrating to the Board of County Commissioners, who are very concerned about the well-being of the families in Walton County and how this applies. So, we're going to do everything we can to support those people who are trying to comply and trying to do the right thing.
Sheriff, is there any action being taken to monitor restaurants for compliance when it comes to the 50% capacity?
So 2 things about that. One, and this is where our partners come in, we're going to lean heavily on both the Department of Business and Professional Regulation and South Walton Fire District to monitor the occupancy requirements, right? So essentially, as calls come in, we're going to attempt to do one of 2 things. One, ask South Walton Fire District to review it and see if that makes sense. And 2, in the restaurants, if they are flagrantly out there, we're going to try and reach out to BPPR, Professional Business Regulation. Their license, their occupancy license, their liquor license could all be put at risk. That takes a little bit of time. So let's just say Bar X says we're going to have, let me back up. The governor has said that he'd prefer those to be handled in a regulatory manner to start with. There is a caveat to that. There's a caveat to that, in my opinion, which is if you are flagrantly disregarding that for the purpose of and putting people at risk, then yes, we would take immediate action. So if Chief Crawford called me and said, Sheriff, there are 150 people down here and they're having a dance party whatever, I don't know what you want to call it. We're going to ask as nicely as we can, but then after that, we're going to take corrective action. Well, all I'm saying to you is don't make me do it, but don't bet against me doing it.
Is the hope in shutting down the beaches to the general public is to send a message to those coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think the message is when you go across the board that, as a family called this morning saying, hey, I'm driving 8 hours with my kids, I need to know if the beach is going to be closed. First of all, you shouldn't be doing that. So that's A. B, the second part of that is, yes, they're going to be closed. And that's what we need to have. And we need our vacation rental folks to be honest and tell these folks that the beaches are closed. Do not continue to advertise and fill houses with 20, 30 people. Come down here and let them take the money. The beach is closed for that standpoint.
Sherry, would you explain why that's a challenge for the South Walton Fire District when it comes to occupancy?
Specifically, the question is the challenge to occupancies that have the number of people in them?
Correct.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. So that's been an ongoing challenge. We as the South Walton Fire District is the authority having jurisdiction over commercial properties when it comes to enforcing life safety code, if you will. We have no jurisdiction over private property, so there's no mechanism in place for us to be able to enforce life safety codes on these occupancies that are being classified as single-family dwellings that we all know have lots of bedrooms and bathrooms, and there's a lot of people piled in them, and so that's a challenge for us. It's a challenge, I think, globally across all of South Walton when we talk about the capacity of roads, the parking issues. You've got a single-family occupancy that has parking for 2 spaces, but there's 25 people in the house, and so all the things from a life safety perspective, we're always concerned about access, egress, people getting out of the building. And we have no enforcement mechanism over that as it currently sits because it's considered a residential property.
Yeah, and I would like to make a point about that as a follow-up. We're getting a lot of comments about what people like or dislike. I don't want you to do this, I like you to do that. But I want to remind people, we're still bound, the Sheriff's Office and Chief Crawford as well, we're bound by the Constitution. There are things that we are simply not going to violate. And at the end of the day, whether I like it or dislike it, as I said before, is not a relevant consideration in this regard. We are going to follow the law, we're going to follow our constitutional duties, and we're not going to violate that. Now, and I say that because there have been people to ask, why aren't we doing certain things? And just the real simple answer is because it's not in our legal authority to do it. Any other questions?
Yeah, just one right quick. Obviously, this is a misdemeanor charge, and if you start actually charging.
Sure.
So the question is, how much heartburn are you willing to accept in terms of the numbers of folks that you'll actually take through that process and clog your system, clog the court system?
So, the question was, how much of this are we how much of this are we willing to endure or how many folks are we willing to arrest, I guess is the best way of putting it, if they're non-compliant. And again, we're shooting for compliance. We're shooting for people working together. But let's be clear about this. If it's a question of wills, I'm going to win that. I'm going to win that, I promise you, because I'm not going to not do my job. Just not going to happen.
Say that we do have some arrests and I know it's misdemeanor, but they do need to get booked into the county jail. Are they going to be screened for coronavirus?
Well, so first of all, that's actually a good question. So the question was if they were arrested, would they be booked in the county jail? We're doing everything we can to limit exposure to both the jail and to the virus itself. So no, we would not, typically speaking, take those folks to jail. We would issue them a notice to appear, a summons, things of that nature. That's a great question because we're going to use some common sense in this. Now, listen, if you slap a deputy or you slap a lifeguard, what do? You're going the whole way. You're going the whole way. You get the full trip. But we're not here to make money. We're not here to create stats. We are here to gain compliance. And so we will be, again, as good as you let us be to you, we will be that way.
And I know during double red flags, it's a thing of they get a warning,
Yeah.
they get a ticket, then they arrest the team. Has that been discussed or is that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we are not running out there and say, hey, you're on the beach, we're going to tackle you, here's your summons. That's not happening. We're going to say, explain to them what's going on, educate them what's happening, let people be aware of what's going on, and then give them the opportunity to comply. So if you choose to not comply after being told, educated, and warned, then you're a dummy.
Sheriff,
That's a technical term.
Just wrap up, how do you plan to educate your deputies? This is
Yeah.
going to be a process that we need to thoughtfully. This happened at 9 o'clock
Sure.
this morning. If you're not seeing deputies on the beach right now, there's a reason behind
Yeah.
that. We've got to get the ball
Yeah,
rolling.
so this is this is a process. The implementation of this is a process. It's a lot of coordination. We had about 24 hours of lead time on this. So we're trying to both get the protocols of how we do it, to make sure we're complying with the law, to make sure that we do it in a thoughtful manner. And we're gearing everybody up. It is a joint operation. This is not a sheriff's office only operation. We appreciate our partners at South Walton Fire District, the Board of County Commissioners at the TDC, but we also, again, appreciate the business owners and the residents who are, even if they don't like it, who are compliant and who understand. So we're going to take a little time. It's going to take a gear up. We couldn't clear all 26 miles of beach by 12 noon. That just was not going to happen. Right? It is going to be a process, but we are going to be fair, and we are going to be professional, and we are going to use common sense in the execution of our duties.
But as a practical matter, you guys will start,
We started now.
start now.
Yeah, we're starting now to the best of our abilities, but it will continue to gear up by, I think by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll have all hands.
And everybody will have the sort of.
For sure,
briefing
for sure. You know, amazingly, there are other things going on in Walton County too. I know sometimes we don't see that in the news, but we're actually engaged in quite a few other things at the same time too. And I'm glad that people don't think anything else is going on, quite honestly. I think that's a sign of a great community that we live in. But we are, in fact, got quite a bit going on as well. But this is important, and we will deal with it as the priority issue today.
Last question.
Thank you for your time, and thank you again to our partners, and thank you to the citizens of Walton County who have, again, regardless of how you feel about this, whether they should or should not have made this decision, respect the fact that they did not make it in a vacuum, and they did not make it without a lot of deep thought, and that your sheriff's office and your fire district and your Board of County Commissioners, TDC employees, everybody involved are going to do what they can to help us all get through this in a thoughtful and professional manner. Thank you.
You've been watching a news conference from Walton County. That was Walton County Sheriff Mike Atkinson. Walton County commissioners have closed all 26 beaches of Walton County. That happened this morning, and now his department, of course, has the challenge to enforce that. He said they will handle it professionally and fair, explaining first to folks on the beach, an educational campaign, if you will, to let them know about the changes that they safely need to remove themselves from the beach. They won't be allowed on the beach. Walton County is going to close because of the coronavirus threat. He said there are a lot of patients under investigation, being screened and tested for COVID-19, more people than they anticipated in Walton. And he said that this is unprecedented, extraordinary times, so they are taking extraordinary measures. Sheriff Atkinson says they do not want to throw a bunch of people in jail. That's not what this is about, but they do expect compliance. He said most folks they're talking to now not happy, but they do understand. There are some private beaches in Walton County, which poses a different challenge. But he is hoping, the county commission there is hoping for voluntary compliance from those private beach owners. He is calling on the TDC, the South Walton Fire District, beach vendors, lifeguards. They have a community support that will help get the word out that Walton County beaches are now closed, and the sheriff's office and law enforcement there will be handling that, going down to the beaches to tell folks they got to go. Also, while he was speaking, Okaloosa County commissioners closing their beaches, their public beaches, starting on Saturday. That's Okaloosa County, where Destin is. And then an email now, Alabama beaches closed. The governor in Alabama saying they're closing their entire state's worth of beaches as well. Final note, Panama City Beach. I know many of you have asked since our story yesterday because of the spring breakers here. We are interviewing city officials as we speak, and we will let you know, of course, as soon as we know what they've decided to do. Follow us, please. Download the free app, My Panhandle Mobile. We provide information as soon as we can, digital first. Facebook, mypanhandle.com. And of course, join us for News 13 Live at 5 and 6. I'm Amy Hoyt. Thank you for watching. We now return you to regular programming.